solved super
Ah.
fast worked. All right, let's get started. So welcome everyone to this webinar together with me and Sabina. And I'm Karen, and I'm the CEO of Custellence. And for me, everywhere where I have been within my career, I have always had the customer in center. I have worked with sales for 15, 20 years. And that's really where the sales begin with the customer, and actually that's where the money comes from. So super important to make your CX work. And for me, I'm also extremely fascinated by the human itself and the behavior and what drives people, and it's super connected to this working with CX. And whatever industry, I have seen how customer experience and also the employee experience are so close together, and
Mm.
where the two of them can work in harmony, you can build a strong and successful culture that really makes the best actually companies in the world. So you can be really lucky if you make those two have a strong connection. Um,
Mm.
and also what I think it's super important to remember, I don't know if you guys have recognized that, but within the CX, it's important that it's not a soft value. It's not something nice to have work with CX. It's business. It's crucial for the business.
Mm.
And that's why for me it's fantastic to be a part of Custellence, where the journey mapping have the power to impact the whole organization, and where the customer experience actually begin within the mapping. And we have created a series of 3 webinars, and today is the first one, focusing actually how to succeed with your mapping. And today I have my colleague with me, co-founder and CX expert Sabina, and she will give us best practice in the art of journey mapping. And feel free also to drop your questions along the webinar in the chat as we go, and we will pick them up one way or another. And
Mm.
we will record a webinar and upload it on our YouTube channel, and you will receive an email when that is done. All right, Sabina, over to
Mm. Thank you. Thank you for the
you.
nice introduction. It's so nice to see you guys here. So I'm Sabina, co-founder and CXO over at Custellence. And when we started Custellence, we wanted to make custom experience and journey mapping work easier. And along the way, this is back in the 2018, along the way up until now, we've learned a lot about what actually helps team to create real change. So over the years, we've seen that custom experience doesn't really fail because of a lack of tools. It fails because teams struggle to turn strategy into action. And I've watched so many teams get stuck talking about customer journeys, the strategies, the frameworks, the big ideas, but never quite moving to working with them in practice. So this is what we will be trying to focus on in this series, to actually share some of those lessons that we've made so that you don't have to do the same mistake as we did, and show you how to move from talking about customer journeys to actually using them to drive real change.
All
Over to
right.
you, Karin.
Yes. And Sabina, you spend a lot of time out there. You have been doing that actually for years, helping organizations with their mapping and the CX work. And you also host CX minutes. Sometimes I
Yeah.
call you Oprah or Ellen DeGeneres or so. That is our own show on YouTube. And then we meet experts within CX, people from all around the world. And it's been actually super popular to join this show. And quite often it's the same kind of questions and challenges that comes
Mm.
up again and again when companies start working with customer journeys.
Mm.
And one of them is actually how to get started in a concrete way, because it could be so big, but actually
Mm.
how to get started within the operations start mapping. So
Mm.
that is the question that we get a lot with the practical side of it. Yeah, so over to you again. Start learning, Sabina.
Let's get moving. Yeah,
The best practice from you.
absolutely. Let me share my screen and see where we are. Give me a moment. Okay. So here's the agenda for today. First of all, we're going to talk about what is a customer journey map and what isn't a customer journey map. There's some misconceptions there that I wanted to just clear out. We're going to talk about the difference between journey maps, blueprints, and process maps. And then I'll share with you what we have found to be the 5 golden rules for choosing where to start when you're going to, embark on a journey mapping project. We're also going to talk about why touch points aren't journeys and the mistake that most beginners make. A super common thing. And then we'll go through how to create a professional level map in one day. That's the agenda. And let's jump into let's see if I can click here. There we go. So what is a customer journey map, or what a customer journey map really is and what it really isn't? The first one. If we look to the left side of the screen here. So a customer journey map is a story of your customer's experience over time. It's basically a visualization of what customers do, think, feel as they interact with your product or service. And this is a powerful tool for turning insights into action. I'm sorry, I just lost myself there. Yeah. And so what isn't a customer journey map? Well, it isn't really a buying process, and it isn't an internal process map, and it isn't a touch point map. So let's see, what is a buying process really? A buying process is usually more about the transaction, like how do we get the customer to buy, right? So while the customer journey is about the whole relationship and every interaction before, during, and long after the purchase, the buying process usually happens maybe once, maybe a few times, but the customer journey goes on over time with lots of repeated touch points. And why isn't a customer journey map an internal process map then? Well, a common mistake you do when you start mapping is to start describing how the organization works instead of how the customer experiences the journey. And that turns it into a process map, really, not a customer journey map. So for example, I've seen maps where they describe, okay, step 1, sales fill in the CRM. Step 2, the order goes to logistics, for instance. And that says nothing about the customer's experience, right? It might be important for us to know how that works, but a real customer journey should focus on the customer's feelings and needs and not internal workflows. Okay? And then we have the touch point map, the dear touch point map. One of the most common mistakes that we see is when you treat a customer journey map like a simple list of touch points. So just listing touch points or the interactions that we have with the customer, like website, customer service, invoice, newsletter, without understanding what happens in between those touch points or understanding the customer's emotions and the pain points and motivations at each stage, that completely misses the point of journey mapping. So a real journey map goes deeper. It captures how the customer feels, what challenges they face, and what is it that drives their decisions along the way. So let's just look at the differences between journey maps, blueprints, and process maps. So from left to right here. So the journey maps, the focus here is to understand the customer experience and what we as an organization can do to improve it. The purpose is to find out, where you shine, where you have gaps in your offer or communication, and, how to prioritize work. It's there. So you visualize the customer steps, insights, and you identify the needs and the pains to find out where can we improve the customer experience. And the perspective, I think this is an important thing to to think about. The perspective of the journey map is always outside in. If we look to in the middle, we have the service blueprint. Here, the focus is what happens behind the scenes. How do we need to arrange our operations to deliver a customer experience? How does the customer journey connect with the organization's operations and the systems and the teams? So this is also something that kind of turned the perspective inside out. We look a little bit more on the inside. And the service blueprint is really helping us see how the front stage and the backstage activities work together or fail to. We also have the beloved process map, where you have the focus here is to basically understand and improve how the internal work actually gets done. So you visualize the internal workflows, the steps and the handovers and all the decisions that drive delivery behind the scenes. So a process map describes the detailed internal workflows and steps. And if we look at the perspective here, the perspective is always internal. I hope that makes sense for you guys. See if I can. And just to sort of show you how this can look in a journey mapping or a journey mapping setting, really. Here I have a journey map and all these parts that goes from the customer faces, and then you got the stages, the steps, the emotions, the pain points, and the web and the touch points is what we can call a customer journey map. And when we add, because you could do that here, when we add lanes that has something to do with what are the processes, the backstage, what is the systems that we need to use or utilize to actually be able to deliver the service or the experience, then you have a service blueprint. And where does the process map comes into place here? I would say that a process map is something that you don't really map out in a customer journey, but you can always relate to it, because you might sometimes need to show how is the process when we do something on the inside to create the customer experience. How does that look? You wouldn't want to have it in a journey map, but you can always link it to and show that, okay, yeah, we have a process here. So that's how they all kind of hang together, because they do relate to each other. Okay, we've come to the 5 golden rules of choosing where to start when you start journey mapping. And I mean, this is, we've been thinking about this, and we've been looking at how do different teams start and how do successful teams start. And it's often very tempting to kind of think about the most important customer journey. We're going to start, with the customer journeys that makes the biggest impact, or that where we have the biggest business value. And I think one thing to keep in mind, and especially for teams and organizations that are new to journey mapping, or if you're in an organization that might not be so mature in working with journey maps and the journey mapping methodology, keep in mind that it's not always about identifying the most important customer journey. Sometimes it's actually about starting where you can make a difference. So the first step that I would recommend is to try and focus to create change within your mandate. Basically, focus where you and your team have influence on decision rights, where you can have budget access or leadership and stakeholder attention. I've seen a lot of customer journey projects start and eventually fail because people who started it couldn't really make any decisions, or couldn't actually make any change in the end. Number 2 is focus where the solution really reach customers. This might sound obvious, but doesn't always happen. Choose a journey where improvements can actually be implemented and seen by customers. So look for low-hanging journeys that directly can impact the experience, and preferably also KPIs. And number 3, start small. And I think this is one of the most important tip if you want to take something away. I think this is also where a lot of teams maybe go wrong, or where projects can go sideways. Because it's often tempting to start with an end-to-end journey or with a business area, like I said before, with a potentially massive impact. But be careful. It can very often, I would say, or easily overwhelm when you're starting with a too large of a scope and become too complex and leading to many other, potential problems, and eventually, unfortunately, ending in nothing. So a smart move here is to actually begin with a smaller, more well-defined journey. You can think of like onboarding or first time use, or something a little bit small, and then show results, and then you can scale up. Number 4, also maybe obvious for many, but not always something that is happening in the real world. Connect to meaningful KPIs or metrics. So try and find a journey and link that journey map to your organization's goals and key customer metrics. Sometimes when you start working on customer journeys and you start mapping out things, and you come to the development of new things, results might not be shown, especially not metrics might take a while to show up, but you could try and find effects of your changes anyway. Maybe they're not monetary, but they could be leading indicators that we're doing the right thing. Because it's like churn, right? Churn is a lagging indicator. So it takes a while before you can actually see what is the difference that we've made. So show real results and how improving the customer experience also can improve the performance, basically. And that's how you can build trust, and you can build long-term support for your CX work. And the 5th tip is to, show results. I spoke about it a little bit in the last point, but the most important thing you can do really is to show the progress that you have made, even if it's a small scale. So communicate internally, and especially if you have metrics or KPIs to support your case, because when others will see tangible results, they want to join you. And I've got a little extra tip, and this is, I'm sorry if it's a long list here, but once you've kind of figured those things out, I think also something that is really good to go through with your team, or the people that you're going to involve in this project, define these 6 questions really. So first of all, what is the business problem that we're going to try to solve? It could be like, we lose 30% of new customers in the first month. And then of course you need to define, what customers are we talking about here? Who is it that is taking the journey? Do we have a segment? Do we have a behavior segment or a persona? How do we categorize the customer? And number 3, define what to solve. So maybe here you can start identifying friction points in for example, onboarding experience. And then you have the goals again. So try and set clear goals. If we do lose 30%, if that was the problem, what is the goal for the work that we're going to try and solve? Maybe reduce churn 30% to 10%, or increase activation, something that connects your goals to the problem. And then try and identify, like I said before, KPIs and non-monetary effects. We've talked about that. And then the 6th point I just want to kind of mention here, and it's ever so actually important, of course. You don't solve a CX problem or some bad stuff in the customer journey by yourself. You need to have people around you. So try and find the right people for this. Build the right team. If you know that it's going to be something to be developed, for instance, then you might have to, get someone from IT. Customer service is a super resource for insights, for instance. You might need marketing, you might need UX, who and why before you start. And next up. Okay, so we're going to talk about why touch points aren't journeys. And we wanted to bring this up because this is a mistake that most beginners make. So think about it. When you map touch points, a touch point map is really when a customer journey map only includes the direct interactions between your organization and the customer. So it could be, for instance, calling support, searching a website, visiting your store, for instance. A touch point map doesn't have the moments in the customer journey like waiting or wondering what happens now, or doing something like thinking or deciding that hasn't got a connection with your organizations. And some examples of touch points can be, welcome emails. We have guides, documents, online things that happens online. It could be your website, for instance, your store, of course, and stuff like that. And in a way, it kind of makes sense to map out your touch points because that's what we can control and that's what we can, we know what is happening most of the time, at least. So I can totally understand why we sometimes do this mistake as well. It makes sense. But the problem with that is, and I've just wanted to show you an example here. So this is a really simple journey map where someone is, going through ordering coffee with an app, basically. And this is how a touch point map could look like. So we have the customer phases before, and we have installing new app and then ordering coffee. And if we were to map this out in terms of, from the touch point perspective, we would probably go, okay, well, before there's an ad post that appears in my feed in my mobile app or in my mobile. And then the next thing is I will, the customer uses the registration page in the app. And then the customer goes to the menu page and chooses a drink and pays. You see, all of these things happen, right? And it's touch points almost all the ways. And yeah, you could do this. There's no problem with this journey, I guess. It looks good. But let's have a look on the next one. The problem is when we only map those touch points, we do take that inside out perspective that I was talking about. And you kind of project your own internal processes onto the customer. There are some problems with that. And the result is that you miss moments that really matters to the customer. And also you kind of base decisions on assumptions and incomplete understanding. So let's look at that map again and see what will happen if we were to add the customer steps. And I'm actually going to go into Custellence and we can have a look at it here. So here we've got the customer steps and the situation. We've got the same phases, and down here I've got the touch points, 3 of them just done. Now, when we map out the customer steps and situations, we can see here that there are some things that are going on in the customer journey that doesn't have anything to do with us as a company. Waking up, I've just kind of marked them blue here. So I wake up, I think about my coffee, and then I see the ad from the coffee company in this case. That's when the first touch point comes in. And then something happens down here. Takes the bus into town, and I've installed the app. I'm ordering my coffee, and down here, along the way here, this is not a touch point. I am waiting. I've paid and confirmed my order, but right now I am waiting. Checking my phone, wonder, is my coffee ready? Maybe I feel a bit rushed, for instance, and think, I hope it won't take too long. I'm worried I will not make it in time to work. This is a super simple, example. But what I want to show you here is that this point in the customer journey, it is not a touch point, but it's a very important situation where the customer can come into that we, as the coffee company here, we need to know that because we can actually make something out of that. It's an opportunity for us. And perhaps that's an opportunity to just add it here, to add a timer in the app to show the waiting time. So super easy. example, but just to show the importance of trying to find those moments in the customer journey that doesn't have to do with a touch point where the customer meets you. So let's jump back into that. So the last thing we're going to talk about is how to create a professional level map in one day. And this is a bit of a challenge to show you this in about 5 minutes or 3 minutes, but I'm going to do my best. So let's look at the essential elements of a good journey map that you can actually work with. I'm going to jump into Custellence, and then we'll go through the structure and the elements that you will need in a customer journey map to make it work. Okay, so if you see here, first of all, you need to do the description of the segment, the persona or the customer profile this journey is about. We talked about that. So try and kind of frame what is the customer. And depending on, what sort of way you use to define your customer profile, this can be done. You can use jobs to be done. You can use the persona type. There's a customer hero templates you can use, whatever works for you. I mean, you can even say, well, 80% of our customers, we can categorize them like that. That's important. Don't do anonymous maps. And the next one is what phase. We'll go from top to bottom on the pink cards I've created here. So first of all, what phase of the customer journey are we mapping? Is it before something happens, before they meet our product or engage in our service? Is it during, or is it after? That's kind of like just to find a context. Where are we? Same thing with the customer journey stages. What stages are we interested in? Is it the awareness stage? Is it the purchase? Is it maybe being a customer? This is actually an example of an insurance company. So we got the claims process, for instance. Something happens. Is that something that we want to focus on? The next step. And then we have, what are the steps or situations that the customer is going through? Really here, what you want to try and do is to, in a sort of simple, almost like think of it like an objective sort of headline description, like a need arises, or I'm making my decision, complete registration, all the steps and the situations that the customer might go through that are important for the chosen phase that you have decided to map. And so when you do that, you also want to focus on what are the customer goals? What is the customer trying to do? What is the goal in each step? And also, of course, what needs can we identify? So here is just some examples of that. We have search and discover different options is the step, pretty like objective described. And then we have what is the customer trying to do and what is the need. Then, of course, when you created a customer journey map, you will want to have the emotional curve. It's very classical and very good, actually, because what you can do with the emotional curve is to quickly identify, as long as you learn about the customer, you take in your insights, you will be able to visualize if the customer are having a good experience, then the point is on top, or a bad experience, and then it follows that it will be on the bottom. You also want to have pain points, and a pain point is where do the customer experience some kind of frustration, difficulty, or dissatisfaction? Where's the customer experience in a low kind of place? And those are the ones that you want to identify, because these are also the opportunities for us to improve the customer experience, of course. So those are important to also have in a customer journey map. And then we come to the touch points. We've talked a lot about the touch points today, but I would say that once we have identified all those things that we talked about now, that is it, purely customer focused and customer oriented, what is happening in the customer journey from the customers or users perspective, now we can go to touch points. Okay, so what or how do we interact with the customer today? And touch points are usually not usually, but you can see them as channels, for instance, like you have the online channels, you have physical channels. Of course, sometimes touch point is also the shop or the people that carry out the service is also a touch point. If we talked about coffee before, I would say that the coffee is definitely a touch point. And that map those. And of course, here we want to ask the question, what can be improved? Is there anything that we can remove? Can we optimize? Can we add something in order to make this experience as smooth and frictionless as possible? And you could also have a lane where we have opportunities, of course, and opportunities for improving the customer experience. And then it's really up to you whether you want to do, you want to add in the service blueprint kind of perspective of it, or if you have, systems, teams, processes, that kind of comes along with what you're trying to do, I would say. But make sure to start from the top, meaning the customer perspective, and then things will slowly also fall into place, I would say, as you go along and start understanding what is the customer going through, what needs do we see here. And let's jump back. So that is the first sort of lesson for how to create a journey map that actually works and not becoming a picture on the wall. Back to you, Karin.
Yeah, thank you, Sabina. And feel free to, if you have questions around the material or anything around the mapping art, please put the questions in the chat. But some questions that we got is like, how long does it take to make a map that I can start use?
Yeah, and that's a super good question. And the kind of obvious answer to that is it depends, but I'm not going to leave you with that. But it does actually depend. It depends on a few things. I would say, first of all, you can create a pretty good journey map based on assumptions on the customer's needs and behavior. Quickly, you can do that in 5-10 minutes. In Custellence, you can do that in 5-10 minutes. But mind you that those journey maps would not be so useful for making decisions for your company. They would be like I would say that they might be a first draft. This is what we believe is happening in the customer journey. In order for the customer journey map to actually work and to be sort of representative of what is going on in the customer journey, you would need to add like verified insights, of course. So it's really depending on how much time do you need to put into gathering the insights that you need and doing the analysis of what does this mean? Why is the customer behaving this way? Or why do they, so if that makes sense, you can do it real quickly, but it will be a first take. Then you would have to, go into the organization and trying to kind of validate the insights and also see what do we need to have customer based insights, really.
All right.
So everything, I would say that everything from 10 minutes to weeks.
Yeah, weeks. But from what we know is that everyone that have a customer journey. You cannot choose.
Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And to map journeys is something that you can do in whatever industry you work in with your company.
Yeah.
But where in the map do I start?
Yes, that's also a very common question, because you might think that, okay, well, oh, if I'm going to map out this customer journey, I might have to start from, what is the trigger? Oh, the trigger is somewhere before everything. And usually, I mean, I would say that the best tip, because what will happen is that you will kind of get stuck in some sort of, you will get paralyzed. You never get to the trigger point. Where is the beginning of this journey? Instead, I would definitely recommend you to start in something that we know. So, for instance, what do we know about people becoming customers? For instance, it could be during, if the phase called during, like when they're actually customers or users of our products. I would start there, and then you could kind of work your way. If you think about it as a chronological order, you can work your way back and forth from that point. So you would think about what happens. Okay, so they sign up for our services. What happened before that? Then you go back in time, right? And what happens after that? And then you go ahead in time, and then you will kind of go and build it from there. So you start somewhere and you will build it both ahead in time and back in time. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great answer. No problem at all to start. And who should be involved to make the journey map real and relevant?
That's also a very common question. I think, of course, it depends on um, what you're going to try to solve, the kind of nature of the development project that it will become. But one kind of I think, key rule is to try and involve a team from the beginning, that will help you both sort of communicate, what you're trying to do. So try and find these people in your organization that also think that this is a good idea to work. You will always find like ambassadors around, and it doesn't really matter what they work with. They are really good for communicating your project. Another thing to involve early on, I think, is most often you will need someone from your IT. And it's not so smart to, do the whole project and then hand that project over to IT. They will never, help you out with that sort of process. So instead, I would say try and involve people as early as possible into the project.
All right, thank
Yeah.
you. Great. So time is soon up and no other questions. So thanks for today, Sabina. And
Thank you.
yes, the next webinar, we will focus on how to sell journey mapping across the organizations, because that's the next step to be successful. So, and if you're not a customer yet that want to start, feel free to sign up on our freemium version to start look around. And if you're already a customer that needs more help from us, please contact Sabina, and we are here to help you guys to be successful with your journey mapping. Okay.
Absolutely.
Any last words from you, Sabina?
Thank you very much, everyone. And I look forward to the next episodes. We're doing 2 more, so don't miss those. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, guys. Bye.